for that summary. Now, look, we still have some time left, so I hope you will send in any questions you'd like to ask about the way Magnitsky sanctions will work, and about the difficulties there will be in imposing them on Turkish officials. Perhaps I could ask, I suspect Bill Browder may not be with us anymore, having moved on to his next appointment, but perhaps I could ask Amanda and Kevin about the way in which I must admit, when I first wrote about it last year, I thought that Turkey being an ally in NATO, it would be difficult to impose sanctions on a friendly country. But I must admit, the more I've heard today, the more widespread the practice is becoming, perhaps, and it's more acceptable it will be to use it just against individuals, which will not be seen as disapproving of a whole country, but will allow such punishments to be targeted more carefully. I don't know whether that's something you feel as well.
Sure, yeah, I think that's, you pointed exactly to one of the real benefits of the global Magnitsky sanctions approach, is it allows the US or other governments with similar sanctions programs to target specific individuals in a way that hopefully doesn't do as much to disrupt the bilateral relationship between the sanctioning country, here the U.S. And the country of the where the individual perpetrator is a national. I think ultimately it comes down to a matter of the particulars of each individual case, of each individual perpetrator, and from the U.S.'s perspective, what their national interest is there. We've seen a number of cases brought forward against individuals who we feel there's very credible evidence to point to their involvement in serious human rights abuses. But because they're from countries where the US has more friendly relations, or you maybe see some strategic advantage to those relations, that maybe perhaps playing into the decision whether or not to sanction them. The US also has a number of other measures that they may take that allow for more limited consequences against individuals. For example, the State Department has a visa restrictions program that they don't have to announce publicly. So it's not that there wouldn't be action being taken, it just might not be making it into headlines, which obviously can be a bit frustrating for activists and lawyers working to push these issues. But yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to a case-by-case basis. And I think to the extent that there are those individuals who you are causing, being involved in serious human rights abuses, and to the extent that both the US and the other country where this person is operating maybe agree that they are not in the best interest of those countries going forward, that might open the door for easier sanctions designation. But it's certainly something that the US government is weighing as it looks at all of the diplomatic tools it might be considering using to respond to any given situation.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Very good. I don't know whether Kevin wanted to make comments on that, or Michael.
Just a brief comment. And I think firstly, we can hear from Amanda that the United States is some way further along the line than the UK government. It's very early stages. And so we don't know really yet how the UK government is going to approach looking at different countries. But there are encouraging signs, particularly the designation of a number of people involved, Saudi nationals who are involved in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi is encouraging. And we'd like to think that the UK government will be able to distinguish between, on the one hand, countries that it would like to develop and foster good relationships with, and on the other hand, being able to distinguish within those countries individuals who are bad actors, and that the two no reason really why the two shouldn't go hand in hand. And it may be, and again, Amanda will have more experience of this, it may well be that one of the things to be learned from this is making applications in respect of persons at the right level, and so sufficiently prominent abusers to make it strategically important that they be placed on a list, but not so powerful that it would become a serious political problem if they were to be put on a list. And that's just one approach. But yes, so far, encouraging signs.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Can I ask Kerem, perhaps, who is in Turkey? I know he's keen, and he's asking how can people abroad help human rights defenders. But I've been asked to put it, I mean, how much will sanctions against individuals be seen as a deterrent within Turkey if they are imposed on human rights violators, Kerem?
I think, I mean, I'm not very optimistic on this point because my door is buzzing anyway. It's about the political will of those governments. When the state of emergency was imposed in Turkey, I received very similar questions. What can we do for you? And to the foreign politicians and diplomats, I said that, why don't you take Turkey to the European Court of Human Rights as a state? When there was a systematic and widespread human rights violation allegations at that time. And now, again, we have the same problem before the Committee of Ministers, although it wasn't officially confirmed. But what I heard is some governments at the Committee of Ministers do not want to initiate the infringement process before the European Court of Human Rights. It's again about political will, because some governments, I'm not just talking about Russians, Hungarian or Polish government, but some Western governments as well. They might act with this autocratic governments not to initiate the infringement procedure. The reason is that they don't want to alienate the Turkish government. As you already stated, this is an ally in Middle East. This is a NATO member, so we shouldn't alienate the Turkish government. So we can delay the infringement procedure before the European Court of Human Rights. If they don't want to do this, how can we trust those governments that they can initiate some sanctions imposed on individuals? It's more risky. I mean, assume that a high-level politician in Turkey is sanctioned by a European country. I'm leaving the United States apart because it already happened, but not about a Turkish individual, by the way. The question is whether the US government would like to do the same thing about a Turkish individual, not an American citizen. That's critical. And I have suspicions about this. And when it comes to the question, what can we do for you? I think you can put some pressure on Turkish government about the new associations law, because both the activities of human rights NGOs in Turkey and international or foreign NGOs that want to conduct activities in Turkey will be under huge pressure after the new amendment made in the association law. And I think there is a lot of place to discuss and to criticize this. A group of special rapporteurs at the United Nations already released a report about the new Turkish amendment on the law of associations. I think this is the most alarming thing about human rights defenders in Turkey at the moment. So I think we need more support from international NGOs to bring this to the discussion at international level.
Thank you, Kerem. Can I just ask, I mean, there are a number of lawyers and other people who very bravely go and observe cases in Turkey. Does that have an effect, the presence of foreign observers? And have there been problems for foreign observers? Have they been obstructed by the Turkish authorities?
I'm a consultant to the ICJ, often, International Commission of Jurists. So ICJ, along with International Bar Association, monitored the Gezi trial. I think it has been useful, and it helps people to understand what's happening in Turkey. But the problem is there are too many cases, and all international observers are following the same cases. I think we need to develop a strategy that some other cases around the country can be monitored and reported back to the international observers. So that's why, rather than monitoring only some leading cases, a strategy needs to be developed to monitor low-profile cases, maybe not as important as Osman Kavala, but still represents the situation in the country. That I think this is another area where international NGOs can work with national NGOs on to develop a strategy on this. But it's definitely very useful monitoring those cases.
That's very good here. Thank you very much, Kerem. Thank you. I wonder, maybe I could ask Michael Polak. We should obviously cherish the European Court of Human Rights and all its efforts, but it can be very slow. And in the case of Turkey, we heard sometimes governments have unfortunately began to refuse to implement judgments in some areas. I mean, do you think the Magnitsky sanctions are going to provide a much faster route to trying to deliver international disapproval and will be taken up much more widely by lawyers in future?
Potentially, yes. In regards to the evidentiary standards, it's a lot easier to make submissions to a government or foreign ministry than it is to set out arguments in a court. And the European Court of Human Rights does fantastic work, and we're very lucky to have it. But it does take a long time to actually get to the result. And then there is the question about actually getting states to comply with the results as well. I think the international community should do more because if countries want to have the benefit of being part of the court, and states really do enjoy being part of it in that they can say, well, we're a country which abides by these types of values, then they should be forced to comply with judgments. But I think sanctions it's another tactic. So it's part of, in regards to countering impunity, I see it like a whole sheaf of different weapons, perhaps. And the Magnitsky sanctions are one weapon. And I know Bill Browder talked about universal jurisdiction and his problems trying to use universal jurisdiction as another weapon. But just recently, I think yesterday in Germany, there was a conviction for someone involved in the Syria conflict as well. So it is usable in some countries. And for us as international lawyers, the challenge is how to use all these different modes of all these different weapons together. So I would never say to anyone, just concentrate on Magnitsky sanctions, but they are a very useful tactic. There's so many different options around the world. In the United States, you've got the Aliens Tort Act, you've got private prosecutions in the United Kingdom, which can be used in some cases. You've got the European Court of Human Rights, you've got all the human rights committees of the United Nations. So there are so many opportunities to look at. And often it's difficult when you have a case to find out what's the best weapon to go with. But I think it does add a lot. And we're very excited about having this opportunity in the United Kingdom to use our own regime. But I think it's very important to remember, just because we've got our own regime in the United Kingdom, that for them to be effective, it must be used together. There's not much point in us having sanctions of a Turkish individual in London if that individual can do banking in Belgium. So it is really important to realize this is a global scheme. And what's been quite, I think, I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit, but what's been quite welcome recently is states acting together in sanctions. And in regards to the Lukashenko regime in Belarus, Canada and the United Kingdom made their sanction decision at exactly the same time. And I hope to see more of that stretching out across the world, countries using sanctioning together. And it gets around some of the impasses with the United Nations.
Thanks very much, Michael. That's and one of the other questions that I think Kevin was alluding to was about working out what level of official should be targeted. In some of these cases, there is obviously the potential for identifying and targeting an individual prison officer, police officer. And what thoughts do people have about going for those lower officials who themselves, it might sometimes be thought, are acting under duress as well, even if they are also the perpetrators at the same time?
I don't know if you want me to jump in quickly on that, but the UK regime is set up to target individuals which will have an effect on a country's behavior. So if you're going too low level, I don't think you'll get people listed. But if you're talking about the head of a police station or a judge who's sending people to arbitrary detention and to torture, that's the kind of level I think would be a starting point. There's no reason why you can't make applications against people at the highest level. Lukashenko is on our list, so you've got the president of Belarus. But at the same time, if you make applications on a few different levels, then it might be that the government says, well, we're not going for the top because that might damage business too much. But these people in the middle who are really causing a lot of the damage are the ones we should be looking at.
That's great. Thank you very much, Michael. Now, are there any other questions other people would like to send in? We've heard from a fantastic array of experts who've delivered lots of different perspectives on the terrible situation in Turkey. And I'm sure a lot of it has been very encouraging in the potential for action that the Magnitsky sanctions bring along. So if I was working on The Guardian, I would look forward to writing cases in the coming months, one would hope, about government actually taking action. And it is great to see the potential. But if there are any other questions, do please send them in. I suspect we've probably reached our full time now. So can I just thank everybody for their contributions, particularly sorry, I clicked off for some reason. It's great to hear people from all around the world. I'm sure we'd all like to be in one room, but at least like this, we can bring together people from all over the world to focus on this. Can I also thank those organisers behind the scenes, Ali and Josh at the Arrested Lawyers Initiative, who've organised this, and Brian O'Connor and Sadiq Sina, who's helped bring it all together. So I should probably wrap it up there. Thank you very much indeed for your contributions. And I hope there will be success and the governments will be moved to intervene in Turkey, and that will have an effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for presiding today in our talk. And can we thank all of the wonderful contributors today? We really have learned a lot. Thank you very much, everyone.